Hello, Dr. David Murphy again here. So now I'd like to talk to you about two models of change that can be incorporated into motivation interviewing conversations. The first one you might be familiar with, the stages of change model. The stage of change model demonstrates that there are different stages to change. We don't just suddenly change. It's a process. And that process starts in the pre-contemplation phase, when really we don't think there's a problem. The classic one of this is an addiction where we might be in denial. We just don't get it that there's a problem. Someone's having temper tantrums, might not realize that this is disrupting their relationships. They're about to get fired at work. They just don't get it. And so the pre-contemplation phase is the lack of realization. When we're ready to start changing, we move into the contemplation phase. We start to think, well, perhaps there is something I need to change. Something's not quite right here. Perhaps there's something else I need to do. And we start to actually think about making the change. We still haven't made the change. We're only thinking about it. And again, that can be a process of how do I do that? How do I go about it? Because someone who's a perfectionist might take a little longer about that too, because they can't find the perfect way to change. But once we move through the contemplation phase, we start to prepare. We make preparations. Someone who's quitting smoking, for instance, might make sure they have no cigarettes in the house on the morning they decided to quit. They perhaps have smoked every single cigarette they've had right up to the evening before. Someone else might make sure that they have no alcohol in the house. If someone's going to make plans to lose weight, they're going to make sure their fridge is full of healthy food and doesn't have high carbohydrate foods. So we start to make preparations in a variety of different ways. And once we feel prepared, then we start to take action. Now we are making the change. The action happens. And after action, once we've made the change, there's a process of maintenance. The change has been made, but now we have to work at it. It takes conscious effort to maintain the change. This is the maintenance phase. It's that period, of course, where you passed your driving test and you're still thinking about driving. It's not completely natural. The recovery phase, what's called the recovery phase stage of change, is the phase where you've learned to drive and you're naturally moving the wheels, you're turning corners, you're able to talk to a passenger, you're changing gears, you're looking in your rearview mirror, you're able to do all of that without thinking about it. That's when we truly completed the change process. Relapse is important to be aware of. Relapse can happen at any stage of change. We can change our minds about contemplation, go back to pre-contemplation. Not a good idea after all. The preparation phase, it might seem overwhelming. We give up on something, we go back to pre-contemplation. The action phase might be too difficult. Even in the maintenance phase, we might find that it's easier to go back to those old behaviors. And the arrows in the circle there demonstrate that when we relapse, we can start at any part of the stage of change and go to any other part of the change. It doesn't have to be just going back one stage of change. We can go all the way from maintenance to pre-contemplation, all the way from action to contemplation. There's a variety of different changes that can happen in that stage. So relapse is not uncommon. And certainly it's important to be aware of that when we're talking to our clients, when we're talking to our patients, to accept that. That's where the acceptance phase comes in motivation interviewing, to really accept that relapse is not uncommon and it can be a part of the process. It doesn't mean to say that the change can't be completed and be taken all the way to recovery. Excuse me, I've lost my down. There we go, right. So the other model of change is conviction and confidence. And what this says is that motivation is determined by an interaction of conviction and confidence. In other words, we won't have the motivation to change until we have both conviction that the change is important and the confidence that we have the resources to make the change. So conviction is the will and confidence is the skill. So conviction and confidence both need to be present to create the motivation to change. And they need to be there in significant amounts. Not just, well, I think I'm sort of confident. Well, I'm kind of sort of convinced. It's not really there. I need to be convinced that the change is important to me, and I need to be confident, yes, I can do it. We can measure that, and we can ask our clients to measure that. If they're thinking of quitting drinking, how convinced are you that it is important to quit drinking? And we can use scales. We use lots of scales in medicine. We use scales for pain, 0 to 10, no pain at all, 10 the worst pain you can imagine. How depressed are you? 0, I'm suicidal. 10, I'm completely well. Anxious, 0, I'm feeling calm and neutral. 10, I'm having a panic attack. So we use these scales all the time. And the 5 seems to be the cutoff point. If the 0 is the bad and the 10 is the good, below 5, this symptom or this measurement is having an impact on our ability to function. It's having an impact on our quality of life. When it's above 5, then life is probably going okay. It's going reasonably well. And the closer we can get to 10, the less impact this will have on our lives, and the more we're going to say, I'm well. So we can measure this. We can ask our patients, ask our clients, with any particular outcome, how convinced are you that it is important to do this outcome? Give me a number on a scale of 0 to 10. 0, you're totally unconvinced that this is important, and 10, you're completely convinced. It's a great measuring point to get a state of where the client is in making this change, because this also affects our strategies in motivational interviewing, particularly when we come to evoking change talk, which I'm going to talk about on the day of the workshop. This will affect our decision-making on how we go about the conversation. So measure that level of conviction. Equally, also, we can measure the level of confidence. How confident are you that you can complete that weight loss strategy that you decided on? How confident are you that you can resolve your anxiety? There's any outcome in there. Once we have discovered the outcome, the patient has determined the outcome. Now, how confident are you? 0, you're not confident at all, and 10, you're completely confident. Again, when that level of confidence is below 5, it's unlikely that the outcome will be achieved. When the outcome is above 5, it's much more likely that the outcome will be achieved. And the closer you get to 10, the more likely success is. So that's the 2 models of change that I wanted to talk about. Again, we'll review this on the day of the workshop. Write down your questions you have right now and bring them along to the workshop. And again, I want to emphasize, please be active in the workshop. Please ask questions, make comments. It gives me an opportunity to demonstrate motivational interviewing, and also brings the workshop alive to you and the participants who are there. There's lots of things I can talk about. And when I get questions, I will respond to those questions and make the workshop relevant to those questions. So questions, comments, feedback, interaction, really important. I'm really looking forward to meeting you, and I hope you will enjoy the workshop. I'm Dr. David Murphy. I will see you then.